everybody, welcome to Now You're Cooking. It's demo night, and tonight we are making a strawberry cake made with Maine strawberries. You don't have to use Maine strawberries, but they're in season now, and you can get them down at Bath Natural Market and also at the strawberry farms. I'm sure the pick your owns are open, and they're so delightful and delicious and fresh and spring-like and make you think of summer. So the cake actually uses Maine strawberries, or fresh strawberries, to flavor it, so it's all naturally flavored, and we're also going to put some in the icing. I do want to mention, speaking of summer fruits, that next week we have Midcoast Provisions, which used to be Little Village Bistro in Wiscasset, and they've kind of changed things around because of the pandemic, and they're now doing to-go foods and doing deliveries for meals and stuff like that. So they're going to be here next week, and they're going to be making pork belly with their really delicious blueberry barbecue sauce, which you've got to try. It is amazing. We do have it in stock here. And it's really, really good. Week after, on the 30th, I'm going to be doing charcuterie board, show you how to make a pretty basic chutney, and kind of how to make your board and fill it so it looks really inviting and appetizing, and that there's something for everybody on there. So to get started, we're going to make the cake. Well, first I'm going to show you how to prep your pans. These are USA pans. And they are nonstick. It's a silicone-coated nonstick. But I like to prep it anyway just to make sure that my cake doesn't stick. So I have some butter. You can use oil. I have some butter on a paper towel. And I'm just going to put that in, making sure that I get it into the corner there. I don't know if that's technically a corner, but I call it a corner. So around the edges. And then we're going to use a little bit, you can use flour. I like to use powdered sugar because on a cake, something that's sweet, it will kind of give it a little bit of a caramelized edge to it. If you're making something savory, just use a little bit of flour. And then you just want to kind of tap it a little bit, and it's hard to do this backwards, but I'll just make a little mess. Actually, I do it this way and then I'll show you. So you just want to get the edges, here, how's that? Get the edges and the bottom, and then I'm just going to tap it on the side of my garbage pan here and get rid of the excess. If you've done one pan, you can tap it into the other to coat the other pan. So there, my two pans are all prepped, ready to go. And what I started with is all of your ingredients for the cake want to be at room temperature. Today's kind of a warm day, so my stuff is at a very warm room temperature. It doesn't need to be as warm as this. I've had it out all day because I had to make a cake earlier so that we could ice it. But what was good about it is when I mixed my butter and my sugar the first time, it took a kind of a little while because my butter was still cold. But this time I had super warm butter, and this is with my granulated sugar. I'll try to talk above the sound of the mixer. And I have this on high, and I just want this to be really fluffy. It's going to get a little bit lighter color than like the deep yellow of your butter. And so pretend that's been mixing for a few minutes. And you can see it's pretty light, and it really helps to have that butter really nice and warm. Don't heat it. Do not liquefy it in the microwave. You want it to still be solid, but really soft. So I'm going to add to that my egg whites. And you always want to crack your egg whites and egg yolks into bowls before you add it so that you don't get shells. We're not whipping the egg whites here, so it doesn't matter if you have a little yolk in it. If you're making meringue meringue, you don't want any water, any yolk, anything in there, or it won't whip up correctly. For this, it doesn't matter quite so much, but you definitely don't want shells in it. So I'm just going to dump that in. That's 5 egg whites, and the recipe will be linked, so don't worry if I'm not giving you all of the amounts, or you can't keep up with me, because it's all going to be linked to the video. So I'm just going to whip this up, and starting on a lower speed, and then slowly speeding up a little bit. And this is going to get really well mixed. And I'm going to stop it in just a second, scrape down the sides. So I let it get kind of mixed there. So I can see it's sticking over here, and I want to make sure there aren't any lumps on the bottom. And then scrape off my scraper, and then we'll mix this again. And you just want that to be nice and kind of fluffy. It's not going to whip up really big like a meringue or a whipped cream, but you'll see it'll be pretty fluffy and smooth. You want it really smooth. Okay, and by the way, you don't have to do this, but I use a fine granulated sugar, a super fine granulated sugar, which is kind of like a caster sugar. You don't have to, you can use regular, but the finer sugars will dissolve much more quickly. So it's kind of nice to use those. We do have caster sugar on our shelves. So I am going to add to this, I think it's 1/3 cup of sour cream. You can also use Greek yogurt. It has the beans in it, which is really nice because you can just add more rum to it. So this is vanilla bean and rum. So very natural, good, strong color. If you're making a white cake, you have to use imitation, unfortunately. But this is really flavorful, vanilla beans and rum, and that's all that's in there. Like I said, the bean is in there, so you can add more rum to it if you want to. After a while, it's going to start losing flavor, but I'm just going to mix this in fairly gently, she says as she turns the speed up. Okay. Then I'm going to put my collar on here. And this is because I want my flour to go into the bowl and not onto the counter like it usually does when I do this sort of thing. And I am going to put this on a lowish speed because I don't want the flour to go flying all over the kitchen, hence the collar on there. I'm pretty sure that at least one of our videos has me adding the flour at a high speed and this big cloud of flour going everywhere. I'm trying to learn. So you don't want to mix this in too much. Whoop. See, I still get clouds of flour, no matter how I try to be clean. And that looks good, and then we'll just pour this in. And that wants to be just mixed. And you can see it's just mixed. It's not like super creamy. I mean, it is creamy, but you can see there's not exactly lumps, but you don't want it really, really well mixed. And now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of milk. And again, it's going to be on a low speed. And I'm going to pour this in slowly because this is going to take a little bit to get mixed in. And again, the milk can, if you turn it on high and you pour it in fast, you get this big spray of milk and stuff. And we don't want the milk all over us. We want the milk in the cake batter. And again, we're not going to mix this super fast and super hard. We just want it just mixed in. I'm going to give it just a little bit of power there. And then I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to take this right off of here. And I'm going to do the rest of the mixing with my spatula. And I don't think I've mentioned lately how much I love this spatula. It's a one-piece design. so you don't have to worry about food getting caught in the crevices. It is silicone, but it's got a hard inner piece. I assume it's metal of some sort. So it's flexible at the end, but it's not going to bend. And it can go right in the dishwasher because it's got high heat possibilities, or high heat, what's the word I want? You know what I'm trying to say. All right, and then the best part, this is, it takes a pound of fresh strawberries, you hull it, chop it up, or put it in the food processor and puree it, and then put it on the stove for about a half an hour or so, maybe a little longer, until it just about halves in size, so you get this really thick puree of strawberries. So this is fresh strawberry, and this is just going to go in, and it's going to get folded in instead of mixed hard with the mixer, because we just want to be gentle here. This also allows you to make sure that you're scraping the bottom of the bowl so you don't have big chunks of butter and sugar at the bottom, or flour. And that's going to be mixed in. And this is where all of the strawberry flavor is coming from. Because you reduce it by half, the flavor is really concentrated in that puree. And it doesn't really matter if it's not completely, if there's like some stripes in it, it's not going to hurt it at all. And this is going to go into our into our pans. You can weigh these if you want to, so you make sure that you get exactly half and half. I don't worry about it too much as long as they're pretty close. And you can make sure that fills the pan. And if you get a layer in, and then you can kind of guesstimate if one of them seems like it has a little bit more than the other. These look pretty even. And then somebody's definitely going to want to lick the bowl here, because this is really yummy batter. So let's just spread that out gently. You don't want to deflate any of the bubbles that you got in there with the egg whites, because that's part of what helps it rise. Okay, we'll call that good. I'm going to stick these in the oven, and these are going to cook for about 24 to 25 minutes. And then you want to stick and I'm going to turn on my timer. You want to use a toothpick or a cake tester like this guy, and stick it into the fattest part of the cake. Pull it out. If there's anything stuck on it, then it needs to go for another minute or two, but you don't want to overbake your cakes. You don't want to underbake them either, but you definitely don't want to overbake them, because they'll just be kind of rubbery and chewy. Nobody likes a chewy cake. Okay, so that's our cake. Cake's in. Those are going to come out, like I said, about 24, 25 minutes. I'm going to cool them on a rack in their pans for about 10 minutes or so, and then you can flip them onto your rack. You definitely need to make sure that they're completely cooled before you try to ice it, or the icing will just melt, and that's no good. So moving over to our icing, we have our cake that came out this morning, and in the bowl here I have, again, softened butter and softened cream cheese, and I'm going to mix those until they're really creamy, which is going to be easy right now because they're both at room temperature and very soft. So this isn't going to take long at all. In fact, they're pretty much mixed as we speak. And I got to tell you about this attachment for the Smeg mixer. This is the Cuisinart is the one I use first. Great little mixer. The Smeg is a little bit more powerful, and you can also get it with this beater blade, which is just like the regular flat beater, except it has these silicone arms on it, which will scrape the sides of the bowl much better than that flat beater will. So this is really awesome. And I have to cheat and look at my recipe here. And this is unsalted butter, and then it tells you to add salt to taste. Same with the batter that we made. So in that bowl of flour, there was flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt. If you use regular salted butter, that's totally fine. Just use less salt or don't use any salt, and that'll be good. So I'm cheating here. And also there is a typo on the recipe. It says to beat the cream cheese and says nothing about the butter, but you put the cream cheese and butter in together, and we'll try to get that fixed up. So now I'm going to add the sugar, and this is 3 cups of confectioner sugar, which is powdered sugar. Powdered sugar, confectioner sugar, same thing, at least as far as I know they are. And so there's 1, 2, probably a cup measure is not the best way to do this, but there's almost 3, and I'll just take a little more, and that's 3. Typically for me, not really worried about my measurements here. All right, now we definitely are going to go slow here because we don't want the sugar to poof up all over the place. I've already made a mess. And we can add a little bit of milk. The recipe calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons of milk. It also calls for freeze-dried strawberries to be added. I'm actually going to use some of our puree instead, so I'm not going to add very much milk to this because the puree is wetter, and I'm going to use the freeze-dried strawberries on the top of the cake. I think you can get them at Trader Joe's. My go-to is nuts.com. They have these cute little logos. This is 2 ounces. It's huge, 2 ounces, because they're so light, they're freeze-dried. But I just get stuff, nuts and all kinds of stuff from nuts.com. It's a great resource. Okay, I'm going to just scrape my sides down a little bit here. And this might be a little loose because it is so warm today. But we're going to ice the cake anyway, and then I'll probably put the cake in the fridge to harden up the icing a little bit, but it might be a little messy. I'm just warning you ahead of time. Might be a little messy. And oh yeah, it's me doing it, so it will be messy. Vanilla. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm going to add... I am back. My messy little area here. Okay, vanilla. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of our strawberry. And again, you can put, well, those are heaping tablespoons, but you can add food coloring again if you want it really pink. Yeah, this is going to be pretty loose, but that's okay. It'll work. It'll still be delicious. Back up, Heather. Look out, look out. Okay. Again, just to scrape this, make sure that that's all mixed well. Poor Heather has to put up with my messiness. But she gets to eat all of our concoctions, so it's worth it. Okay, so you can taste it at this point, see if it's strawberry-y enough for you. Like I said, you can, the recipe says to use this freeze-dried strawberries. I like putting the fresh strawberries in it. It appeals to me. So yeah, this is going to be really runny, but that's okay, folks. Just bear with me. You could also refrigerate your icing a little bit before you ice the cake. We don't have time for that nonsense. All right, so I'm going to just spread this. I could have scraped that bowl better. Nobody's going to complain, though. Trust me, nobody will complain. Are you complaining, Heather?
No.
Heather is not complaining. She's just laughing. Okay. And then I have my other cake that I baked earlier. If your cakes come out really domed, you want to take a serrated bread knife and cut it so that it's more or less flat. Okay, this is going to be the really messy part. But at least you'll get an idea of what it looks like, even though it's kind of runny. And I'm just going to glob that all right on top there. And then I will spread it out. And again, this is going to go right into the fridge as soon as we sign off tonight, so that it can harden up just a little bit. But it's kind of going to ooze right over the sides, I think. And then you can just carefully spread it on. Just ignore those big chunks of cream cheese. They're going to be covered up with strawberry dust in just a minute. All right. I also want to say, I am not really a baker. I can cook with both eyes closed and both arms tied behind my back. But this cake has come out perfectly every time I've made it, as has our chocolate cake, which is called Really Good Chocolate Cake with cherries. And so they make me really happy because I'm just not a baker, but I bake these and everyone thinks I'm really a great baker, and I'm not. So if I can do it, my point is if I can do it, you can do it. All right, look at that. And now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to dust the top. And you can also, it's not so easy to do on here, but I'll see what I can do since I'm making it messy. But if you have plenty of the strawberry dust, and if you have a turntable, you can take the dust in your hand and apply it to the sides. So I'm not going to do it all the way around because I don't have enough and it's not going to look great. But in case you're feeling like making a more professional looking cake, it could look something like that. The freeze-dried strawberries are a little tart. They're not super, super sweet. But they are delicious. And we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna let this harden up a little bit, and then we'll take a picture of a slice so you can see how it looks when it's done and served. And sorry, my counter looks disgusting. Let's move that over there. So that's our really delicious strawberry cake. Oh, by the way, this is not my recipe. This comes from Sally's Baking Addiction, which is one of our favorite online sites to find recipes. Everything I've tried from there has been really good, pretty easy to follow the directions and everything, and delicious. If you feel like having some wine with your cake, we have a sparkling Moscato, which is from Italy. That's going to be on the sweeter side. It's a dessert wine. If you want something a little drier, we recommend the Bougie, which is a sparkling Gamay rosé. And that is really yummy. And we hope that you're going to try this cake because it's really good and the strawberries are fresh right now. So go ahead and make that. And we will see you hopefully next week with Midcoast Provisions for the pork belly with blueberry barbecue sauce. Even if you don't eat pork belly, come in and get some barbecue sauce because it's great on salmon or pork or chicken or anything else that you want to eat it on. And then the week after that, we're going to be doing a charcuterie board, so we hope you'll join us for that as well. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next time.